Dear delegates, welcome to our curtain raiser panel discussion. Research suggests that globally the demand for Nutra products has increased significantly. The devastating effects of the pandemic have led people across the world to embrace a healthier, plant-based lifestyle and other superfoods to meet their daily nutritional requirements. There is also an increase in consumption of immunity-boosting foods. This session will throw more light on how can India efficiently capture growing acceptance of these products and establish prowess. Here we overview the nutraceuticals industry in general and look at what the future holds wholesalers and distributors in 2021 and beyond. We attempt to answer some key questions like the role of regulators to give the industry the required boost, develop a model of integrated end-to-end supply chain capability, gaining momentum in health and fitness industry, what factors to look for, and most importantly, should we be repositioning the nutraceutical industry as mainstream and not merely be an alternative? And with great pleasure, I invite our eminent speakers. I welcome Mr. Sandeep Gupta, Chief Founder and Director, ENAC, Director and CEO, NutraWorks, Nutraceutical Man of India. We welcome Mr. Prashant Nagre, Managing Director for Menta Biotech Limited. We also welcome Mr. Sanjay Mariwala, Executive Chairman and Managing Director, OmniActive Health. A very warm welcome to Mr. Abhishek Jain, Business Head, Vantage Nutrition. I invite Dr. Vinita Satyavrat, Head R&D, Medical and Regulatory, India and Branded Markets, Nutrition and Nutraceuticals at Dr. Reddy's Laboratories. Welcome, ma'am. And with great pleasure, I invite our panel moderator, Dr. Anish Desai, Chief of Expert Medical and Scientific Advocacy Board and ENAC and Director, Intelemed Healthcare Solutions to kindly take this conversation forward. So over to you, Dr. Desai.
Thank you very much. And again, a warm welcome to all the panelists. As rightly mentioned, in last 18 months or so, we have seen a sea change that has been happening in the management of health and wellness. And nutraceuticals have been at the forefront of all these changes that are happening. In fact, we realized at a point of time that pharmaceuticals, there were no available drugs to manage and to treat the viral infection that was so rampant at that point of time. And immunity became a very important aspect to manage that. The vaccine was taking its time to coming to the light of the day. And that's where we realized that a healthy lifestyle was very important. And that's where the role of nutraceuticals came into the focus. And there a lot of medical fraternity, the R&D fraternity, and several other stakeholders came together to realize that if we have to combat such situations in the future, then nutraceuticals needs to take the center stage. And several nutraceutical products have been evaluated in last several years with clinical evidence that has been documented in peer-reviewed journals. And today, looking at this whole theme of how do we really look at nutraceuticals as mainstream, we are going to talk to our distinguished panelists and see what are their views in terms of the nutraceutical field at this point of time. Where do we see the role of nutraceuticals in health and wellness and disease at this point of time? And how do we really take this forward in coming times? So my first question is to Sandeep Gupta. So Sandeep, the question that I have is that what is the current landscape of nutraceutical innovation in India?
Thank you, Dr. Anish. That this is something which is very promising question, and it's absolutely when we're talking about nutraceutical bringing to mainstream. Firstly, I will mention to all the panelists like thank you so much to Economic Times, Dr. Anish, and all the experts who are there on the panel. Coming back to the questions that the landscape of nutraceutical innovations in India, let me say one thing, Dr. Anish, that nutraceuticals were always in spotlight. They were always in mainstream. What exactly has changed in last 2 years is the situations, the ecosystem in the industry. The life situations have changed. The state of mind of people have changed. People have started focusing on their health, wellness, and fitness. Earlier, a nutraceutical was more dominated by an RX category. That was a medical profession. So it was more in a closed door approach. A recommendation used to happen about it. Now, in last 2 years, a very significant change what we have seen, and that's how we are discussing about the landscape of nutraceutical innovations. A lot of emerging, I would say, people have started thinking differently. Then we are not doing absolute different, doing things in a different manner. When I say differently, it's all about an innovations. People are using the old stuff into it. I said old wine in new bottle. When I give an example, the landscape, when you talk about an innovations like an ingredients like a coenzyme Q10 or a collagen, which was there for some time, it's about in 1.5, 2 decades in the market. People are using them. People are bringing it in the market in a various innovative formats about it. When I say now and a nutraceutical innovation, it has a multi-hued perspective. And why I say multi-hued perspective? If you see a nutraceutical market, it's a conglomerate of like in sports nutrition, it's an wellness essential. No, it's coming into a form of an organic and naturals. So when you see the habit of consuming nutrition across the globe, and especially in India, it's changing. People want to consume this, and especially on onset of pandemic, people have realized the importance of health, wellness, and fitness. When I say they have realized the importance, earlier they were not so much aware of it, they were not so educated about it, and they were not so engaged by an industry. But in last 2 years, if you say the industry, the way it has propagated, and it's all because the onset of pandemic, the industry has become a very, very serious. They're trying to educate, they're trying to create an awareness, they're trying to interact with the consumer about it. In this process, what is happening? They're also understanding the need, the demand, the gaps in the market, the problem state of the market. So when you talk about an innovation, probably and consumer wants to have a nutraceutical, they want to consume it, but the way it is presented, it was in the current form was in more in tablets, it was more in capsules, but it was more towards looking as a medicinal format. So there was some resistance which was always shown by a consumer. It was always in potential market, it was always in the mainstream about it. But now what has happened is about it, a lot of companies have started presenting the nutraceuticals in a form of a very innovative way. It's like shots, the EVTs, the powder formats in the form of a when you talk about the protein consumption, we talk about protein as a very big deficient issue in India. More than about 85% of an Indian is protein deficient. How do you engage in consumer to make aware of how important this protein is? It's only by educating or also bringing in formats where they accept and they change their habit about it. Recent past, my observation is that protein is coming in a different format. I'm seeing in protein bars, I'm looking at the protein waters, and they just simply don't give in 5 gram or 10 gram. I've seen some of the formats. They give an adequate protein where you take once or twice. You meet the requirement of a daily protein in a daily lifestyle about it. So what I'm seeing is the formats, the dosage forms. And when we talk about the ready to drinks, juices, straws, oral strips, and then we talk about the sublinguals formats about it. Beaded straws, a very interesting format which I came across about it. How you can change the habit of kids. When they say no to the milk, they will start saying yes to the milk because there are formats which is coming in the beaded straws about, when you talk about the probiotics, when you talk about the calciums, when you talk about protein, these are like something which we need to rethink. The industry is taking a steps forward. There are a lot of innovations happening, and the outcome is basically when you actually take this formats or innovation to a consumer, when they experience, when they engage in a very interesting, in a novel format about it, you do get a positive response of it and you feel the potential of this market. So when I see also one of the aspects where nutraceutical is based now, nutraceutical was always, as I said, it was always in the mainstream of RX category. It was gradually it moved to a direct to consumer category. Now I'm seeing as more importantly to mention here is about the personalized nutrition. How important consumer will look for a customized nutrition approach. The fourth aspect which I see innovation and a potential for nutraceutical market is regenerative medicine, where it's becoming a very important potential area where industry will see to make an inroads and approach in regenerative medicine, and will have a marrying with the regenerative medicines, and a lot of medical, I would say, diagnosis process will be involved, where nutraceuticals can really carve out its niche in the area of regenerative medicine also. In holistically, if I have to say that nutraceutical is absolutely having an approach of multi-hood innovations currently. It's in coming in a different innovative formats. And if you see the innovations in all category and all age groups of things, when I'm talking about the innovations, it's happening for children to and senior citizens.
Yeah, thanks, Sandeep, for your excellent views. So moving on to Mr. Prashant Nagre, I would like to just address you this question. So we have seen, as we said, that the COVID situation has given us a kind of a thrust to the nutraceutical industry. We have looked at the growth of the industry. The growth of the industry has accelerated to a very, very high double-digit growth. And the CAGR of the industry has also accelerated. So in the background of this scenario, how do we see to meet the demands as well as maintaining quality? How can the R&D assist in growing high quality natural sources in India? So your thoughts on it, Mr. Prashant.
Thank you so much, Dr. Anish, for this question. And at heart of our industry, which is something to do with the human health, which is technology driven, I think R&D plays a very, very important role. To me, innovation is at center of whatever we do. And I would just like to provoke some thoughts here is, and we come from pharmaceutical industry, now into nutritional. So the experience of pharma industry has been excellent. When we see at nutritional industry, we are slightly inward looking. Most of the growth for the industry is within India. Export-led growth has not happened in nutritional, unlike in pharma. And I think for innovation to get triggered, that is something as pharma has enjoyed, that segment has enjoyed. 1990, before that, we were an inward-looking industry in pharma. And you have seen in the last 20 years, thankfully, Dr. Vinita is here. She has seen Dr. Reddy's lab in the last 2 or 3 decades with the outlook that was outside India, has helped them to also shape the Indian market. So that was my first thought on the outlook. And we remain a net importer with negative foreign exchange contribution in nutritional industry. I think for that to change, R&D will play a big role. So the paradigm shift, which will change the outlook of this industry on account of exposure to the outside world, would change the way that we look at quality, we look at regulatory understanding, we look at clinical evaluation of our products and services. And I think that changes completely the ability of this industry to handle complexity, and that will help grow even the domestic part of the industry. So R&D will play a very, very important role there. Now, just quick couple of thoughts on the R&D. One is that the role of biotechnology is very, very essential to be realized in this. We come from the ingredient basket of the nutritional industry, and I feel that we are the largest population of vegetarian anywhere on the planet. And biotechnology will play a great role in getting you the vegetarian or the green dot based ingredient. And that we do have the caliber in this country to realize, I think that is something. Over reliance on Chinese, also that through R&D and use of biotechnology can change completely. Second is the clinical evidence and the IPR protection. We have seen that with increased attention to those aspects plays a very, very positive contribution on the investments that we do and the recovery that is necessary in the R&D side. The systems which are there, which is, for example, the pharma industry background, which means that there are few players from pharma industry in nutritional. And I think more and more pharma industry, when they get engaged in this field, will help because they will carry their wisdom from pharma in terms of the R&D and the delivery formats that are there. Because stabilizing and delivering and making sure that the ingredient reaches the consumer in its entire strength is very, very essential. So not only the ingredient, but the delivery to ensure the stability, the organoleptic properties or something. So those are very, very few thoughts on the R&D and its contribution, Dr. Anish. Back. Probably you are mute, Dr. Anish.
Yeah. So when you look at overall the industry, Mr. Sanjay Mariwala, there are different capability building which is required within the organization. And when you look at these capabilities, the regulatory is a very important capability. The R&D and quality assurances are important capabilities. The medical and clinical are important capabilities. So what, according to you, are the capabilities that are essential if we have to grow this industry exponentially and get a good credibility for the industry?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Anish. This is an excellent question. I think there are, what you rightly said, the capabilities for clinical, the capabilities for R&D, the capabilities for QA assurance, quality assurance and quality control, I think are extremely critical for the basic industry to build up. But as you rightly said, if we have to make an exponential growth, what else would be required? If you look at the evolution of the nutraceuticals space, it's been done in two large spaces. One is the chemistry space, the second is the botanical space. If you need botanicals, you need a very strong agri program that supports these botanical supply chains. Okay. So supply chain is a very important capability that we need to think of building up as an organization, as an industry, as a country, and as a nation, if we have to play a significant role. And this is an area which India can actually score over most countries in, because we have great agriculture capabilities and possibilities to create many medicinal plants, nutritional plants, use the regular plants for their nutritional purposes as well. I think another area which is important is that building the capability in terms of, creating innovative solutions from these materials, plants that are not easily available. If we can grow them and we can resurrect them, there are plants that are endangered. Can we work on programs that can help these plants come back again? There are lots and lots of medicinal plants that we know in our science and our traditional sciences that can be used for many benefits for the consumers across the world. I believe that's a very important area of focus. I think, as one of the other speakers said, the delivery technologies, the ability to build the stability, the ability to preserve natural ingredients in a framework of delivery technologies are, I think, also extremely critical, because you need to provide shelves, stability, shelf time and space for shelf life, which is critical in natural products. So this would be one very important area for the companies to focus on. We need to build that up as a part of our program of building this industry and its capabilities going forward. The second part of chemistry, I think, exists in this country. We have very strong chemical knowledge. We have a strong chemistry background in our pharmaceutical industry, and I think that should be leveraged to create opportunities in products that are larger in the global scale. And I think the pharma industry can play a significant portion in entering that space as well for the nutritional industry in India, the nutraceutical industry in India.
Thank you, Mr. Sanjay Mariwala. I think very important points which you and Mr. Prashant Nagare brought in is that we have a very strong experience of the pharmaceutical industry, and all the capabilities are pretty well developed. And how do we really use those capabilities to enhance the capabilities within the nutraceuticals is going to be very critical. Moving on to our next panelist, Mr. Abhishek Jain. Mr. Abhishek, we have been talking about a lot about technology innovations. So how do you think technology can be really helpful in development of newer products, newer ideas, innovation in the area of nutraceuticals, so we can achieve superior patient outcomes?
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Dr. Desai, and good morning to everyone, my panel members. I'm Abhishek Jain from Vantage Nutrition. So when you talk about technology, I think the first step to develop any potent finished product is to select the right ingredients, which are most effective, thoroughly tested for claims and proven to deliver better health benefits. So be it an omega oil or curcumin, I think we have a customized selection of only the most potent bioavailable forms of ingredients. These ingredients are then combined with nutrients that work synergistically towards a desired health benefit. And most important is the dosage quantities per product is based on the latest scientific literature as well as compliant to the RDA and the permitted range specified by ICMR and FSSAI. I think the next most important step for innovative technology is basically to develop innovative products is technology and the USPs that I think I heard Mr. Prashant talking about delivery. And that is where I think we use our own in-house developed technologies to formulate products, ensuring accurate dosing, site-specific delivery, time release of ingredients, and most important, I think we can combine incompatible ingredients together in a single dosage to provide an all-in-one solution along with enhanced absorption in the body. Now, technology can play a very significant role and be an enabler to enhance finished products with multiple highlights. Now, just to give you a few examples, all this while we had a soft gelatin capsule to encapsulate lipid ingredients. But very recently, I think we've come out with the entire vegetarian capsule range, which will encapsulate the entire lipid product profile. Now, this is a great thing, which even I think Dr. Prashant updated because of the vegetarian population that we have in India. This is a great USP that brands can drive. There is a good requirement for fast absorbing liquids and oils in capsules to improve the efficacy of the nutrients. Time release. This is something that we learned from the pharmaceutical industry. Time release of ingredients, be it in pellets form or beadlets, combined with oils, they derive great product USPs. And we can have capsules inside a capsule or a tablet inside a capsule, basically to enable incompatible ingredients to be combined into a same product. I think these are just few of our endless possibilities that we see that technology can play a role. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Abhishek. And my move on to Dr. Vinita, and welcome Vinita to the panel. It's nice to see you back, my old colleague. So the question that I have is that to you, Dr. Vinita, is that we have seen the acceleration of the nutraceutical industry because of the pandemic and because of the kind of activities that we have seen from different stakeholders. Now, for it to be repositioned into as a mainstream and to increase the awareness and education, what do you think are the steps that needs to be taken so that it becomes one of the focused industries?
Thanks, Please, and hi again, and hi to all the panelists and to the listeners. I think everybody has touched upon quite many aspects that need to be integrated. However, what is more important is, look at, and largely if you have to look at what we saw in the past, 12, 13 years in which this category has largely shaped, even today there are gaps. So for example, categorization. In the categorization, for that matter, even today from a regulatory complexity, the categorization has simple dietary supplements to the most complex, your food for special medical purpose. However, are there principles clearly laid down in these regulatory categorizations for industry to react? I think the answer is no. It needs a lot of simplicity in regulatory framework as well as regulatory principles managing some of these categories under which, the offerings are given. So my first take would be simplicity in regulatory categorization, most important. The second part is stakeholders. Industry may offer, industry is trying their best to meet these requirements, but are stakeholders, at the same page? Our answer is clearly no. Stakeholders, your regulatory, your government, your users, consumers, as well as your doctors and dietitians. Do they have a very clear understanding of, what is given to them? I think, and that's why you used the terminology credibility, building credibility across these five, because if we start comparing Nutra with pharma, probably we have a long way to reach there. There are so many gray areas in between Nutra versus a pharma. And even if we try to adopt, some principles related to pharma, the understanding at the stakeholder level is not, and hence, if there is sharing and learning from each other, if this is started, between the Nutra industry, probably the exponential credibility that we may, be able to achieve as an industry will be much, much faster. So it's about sharing, and it's about sharing knowledge and learning from each other. The third part, I think, Mr. Kamri did talk upon is this back-end supply chain. I mean, today it is monopolized, and I'm using this word monopolized because if we have to create science in a or science in a particular format, you need those ingredients, and it's not just about the ingredients. You never have a purified form. There are some industries who are coming in with purified, but there are many unknowns in that offerings of one raw material, and there is a monopoly. So, what happens here is how do we invest, and hence investment in the back end and your front end both is going to be important. Otherwise, it's a long way to go. And the last part is about the industry itself. What are the need gaps in the market today? What does a consumer want? What does a patient want? Is industry ready to give those? Answer today is not necessary. I mean, we struggle when we have to design a product for the exact need gap of a consumer or the exact need gap of a patient. So core remains is simplify this whole categorization, create a very principled approach. You may not have a very black and white approach, but adoption and creation of principles around which certain decisions can be taken for categorization. Invest in your back end and front end, both research as well as creation of different vendors, inter vendors, high quality vendors, creating giving raw materials. I'm not even talking of high end functional ingredients. We're talking of basics here. A basic of a protein, which is important. I mean, and that's why I touched just upon the basic. We don't have those suppliers with that right next level of depth of what does that ingredient contain. And the last part is about sharing. I think sharing is going to be very important for this industry if we want to move exponentially. So simplify, share, invest, and educate. I think these are 4 things that we need to do across as a 360-degree integrated stakeholder management.
Thanks, Dr. Vinita, for your thoughts. Moving on to the next set of questions. Sandeep, what I would like to address to you is that you mentioned quite a bit about the nutraceutical industry probably being the mainstream and maybe certain changes that have happened. However, I think different stakeholders, some of the external stakeholders needs to be in sync when we are looking at a lot of these activities. And to make it in the kind of mainstream, what do you see how the way the regulations are evolved? Because I know you have been at the forefront of the regulatory scenario. So how do you see the entire regulatory scenario? How do you see the regulatory changes that are happening at this point of time? And how do you really see the role of the government into this whole area? How is it happening and how it will happen in the coming time?
So thank you, Dr. Anish. This is something which is always a hot topic to discuss and to debate. And generally industries remains always curious and remains in curious state that what's going to happen next. Now, how it's going to impact the industry, and it's all boiled down to regulatory perspective about it. Firstly, to tell you about just to give seconding the thought process of the Vinita that when we are following the process of innovation and we start from the grassroots of identifying a problem state, the market need gap analysis, catering unmet needs, and look at the market, what kind of solutions it's been offered in the market, whether it's stable solutions, whether it's supplementation, whether there's something which is integrated with the fitness and the mindful perspective about it. And it all goes with the backing of the credibility, evidence-based science, transparencies, talking about the clean, ethical, safe products. That's where the Food Safety Standards Act of India comes in about it. When this act was not there and we were operating about the Preventive of Food Adulteration Act, if you see the title of both the acts, when we were in 1954, since then we have been using the Prevention of Food Adulteration Act, which means it was always a concern about the adulteration It was always a concern about safety. It was always a concern about the counterfeiting. It was always a concern about the non-compliances. Now, when we say that Food Safety Standard Act, which was reconstrued, and when the act came into 2006, and when they came with the act, again the act was in place. The challenge remains the same. Like we couldn't find exactly where the problem was lying in about it. And then we went back in the 2011, 2012, when the industry started facing a tremendous challenges. If you see in 2012, 5,000 products were banned. It was abruptly banned, and this product was banned because of an undue process which was there in place called as so-called the product approval process, which was not within the gamut of the legal statute. And where the industry was alerted, the industry found there was a challenges is just through a product approval process, but that's not the challenge which exactly industry was processed. The process was hindered, or the challenge for the industry was the lack of regulations, wherein we combated this issue. We debated this issue with the government to bring a regulations. When the regulation was formed, when this product approval process was struck down, with the premise that there is a lack of regulation, and the government was asked to make a regulation, and we all sat together and we took a lead to make a regulations. I was a prime lead in making a regulations along with the committee, with the FSSAI officials, with the industry bodies together. We made this regulation. What we have drawn the synopsis in that regulation is about the standardization and the safety aspect of it. But if you see today, the FSSAI has laid down a regulation is one of the dynamic. It's evolving. Even we are more faster, rapid, quicker than compared to what US has adopted, the DHC, which was in place, but was never published. What we as an industry brought a pressure in the entire perspective of the governance about the self-regulation process, or the regulatory perspective about the supervisory and the monetary perspective, to bring a very formatted, design the regulation in such a manner that people have a checklist to follow. People have a guideline to follow. People can follow those compliances about it. So when the regulation was made, FSSAI has put across the listing of standard ingredients. They put the list of safe ingredients. That in some of the cases, they put the levels where they were skeptical, where they were doubt, they were not sure about the clinical perspective, though there are higher and potential scope to improvise. It's, as I said, it is evolving. Is having a dialogue with an FSSAI to improvise, consistently improve this. Now you see a current situation that relations in place, and you see from 2012 and you come to 2021, you see the facet of industry. The industry which was at about 4 billion is now moving towards to become an 18 billion industry by 2025. Why? Ask yourself a question, because the regulation in place, you're seeing an evolution of nutraceuticals, you're seeing the dynamism is changed, innovation is happening about it, and you see the kind of an encourage and empowerment given to startups. I would say I second this regulation. It's very dynamic, it's evolving. Yes, I do see a scope. We are having a dialogue. Now, biggest challenge what and this regulation has brought in place is not about the ingredients or its standardization or safety. What I see that this has not been adopted seamlessly, smoothly with the licensing system. So the challenge is not in the regulation, the challenge is in the licensing system, where we are stuck. Having the best regulation, having the dynamic regulation, a regulation which empowers the ease of business, a regulation which empowers the innovation in the industry has been actually stuck, because the tail end, the licensing, which is a very important premise for any food business operator to manufacture in compliance, is posing a hurdle.
Yeah, thanks.
So here now, what industry licensing ecosystem, where we need to into the licensing ecosystem. Yeah, Dr. Anish.
Yeah, Sandeep, you're done because I thought in between.
No,
we
no.
just lost-
I thought somebody's interpreted. So no, I did about it. So the whole perspective. What I was trying to bring in is about it. That today, I will see the current challenges is lies in the licensing system. We are working. There are new perspective to license system is coming into place about it, which may cause a larger repercussions, which may cause a threat to an intellectual property rights of the marketeers, intellectual property rights of the manufacturers. So that is something which is, I would say, a heating point. Otherwise, if I have to say very positively, a forward thinking, that industry has really got now an empowerment for an innovation, empowerment for a growth and expansion, empowerment to develop new products, focus on research and development. As I said, this regulation has given so much of empowerment. It's created an ease of business, but in recent past, what the challenges face is in the licensing system, which we need to address it very effectively, very responsibly, in a manner where we are in compliance with regulations under the act, under the FSSAI Act, and not regenerate, rediscover, or I would say redevelop any kind of a process which is going to hinder the entire growth of the growth and expansion of the industry. So I see India is one of the promising land of opportunities. A, for a domestic, as Sanjay mentioned about, like the botanicals, the naturals. The focus has to brought to the land of opportunities like India, where we have so much to give to the world. You see the history. We are talking about the haldi, the kurkumin. We are talking about ashwagandha. We are talking about so much of naturals been produced in India and has been gifted to the world. And during pandemic, we have witnessed that these naturals, the herbals, which are classified under nutraceuticals today, has so much of opportunities to take it to the world market. So I see the both the domestic and empowerment to an industry who are established, the newcomers, and an existing the existing, I would say, various industries entering into the area of health, wellness, and fitness in various ways. As I said in an earlier question about the regenerative medicines, medical diagnostics, these are all opportunities. It's only when the regulation is eased out. So currently, what I would say, the industry should negotiate, should debate and deliberate with the government. And the very important aspect which ENAC, an expert nutraceutical advocacy, and we're also taking an alignment of all the bodies together to bring the GST, which is a major concern. And if you see the GST 5 years back, it was 28% when it was defined. We brought it to 18%. So is a similar effort. An augmented effort has to be by the government, put in by the industry, have to have a dialogue with the finance ministry, have to have a dialogue with the MSMSC ministry, have to have a dialogue with MOFPI and the Ministry of the Health, and see that the health, wellness, fitness become a prime importance in this country. And we focus on bringing an accessible, innovative, affordable nutraceuticals to Indian population and also to take it to different parts of the world. So GST is something which is, I would say, is a very important premise. We should all discuss this about it. There's a huge scope. If it is brought from 18% to 5%, it can be a phenomenal change in the growth and expansion of the industry. And a lot can happen on in the nutraceutical sector.
Thanks, Sandeep, for your frank views as always, and very, very crisp and good overview. Moving on to Mr. Prashant. We know that the industry is at a cusp of tremendous exponential growth. And innovation is the most important thing for growth of any industry. And we have seen that with different technologies, different other kind of consumer industries also, and the electronic industry. So what do you see the new trends and the new kind of innovations that will shape the industry for in coming time? Mr. Prashant?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Anish. I'm sorry, I was muted. Thank you so much for this question. And I think the trend, when I look at it, would be on two different levels. One is the entire industry itself, and something which is next to it, which is the diagnostic. These two will be fueling the growth for the future in this segment. So I'll first come to the industry itself. So we were so one is on the delivery format. We were so used to seeing everything in the soft gelatin format. So anything but capsules is where the first trend would be. So thankfully, Sandeep mentioned in his first question a little bit on this, but anything which is, so when I visit internationally and I see a large format of any nutritional outlet, the word which comes to my mind is the offerings are romantic. That's how you can kind of in one line mention. So it could be anything but the capsules, which means that it could be strips, shots, melts, lozenges, gummies, pastilles, solid emulsions, and the way it is delivered and packed. That I think is going to change. The way that Indian consumers have seen their products will not be the same ever again. So that is where the first line would be. The second is both Sanjaya and now Sandeep both mentioned about the Indian plant system and the ingredients out of it. I come from a company which had found Resarpen, if some of you know that. So this was the Ciba-Geigy's first gift from plant-based drugs. It was done at the place where in Mumbai now Oberoi Towers is. That was the Ciba Research Center. So that was the first drug. So the potential for plant-based systems is enormous. That is the second trend which would come in. And it is getting, because of technology, the separation technologies and all, the methods by which you can do the analyticals, it is becoming so easy. The technology is helping this sector to define. The regulatory part will keep pace with it, and I'm very, very sure that this is something which is the future trend. The third one is technology to table. I firmly believe that technology has overtaken our lives. 20 years ago, we never would have imagined that we would actually watch a movie on our phone. And today, I think it is nothing but on demand. Okay, it is not even the channels that we have. We have more than 200 channels, but that is not where we watch our entertainment now. It is on demand. The music is on demand. And why will nutritional not be the case? I believe that everything that we consume for wellness or fitness would be all driven by personalized, customized solutions. And I think that the startups will be the force in this. The young people will define how it is, we want it or we do not want, but that's way. The traditional industry will have to align with that model of delivery. So there is going to be disruption there for sure.
Yeah.
Then the next one is about ingredients, the emerging ingredients which are there. Immune health is hyped, in my opinion, overhyped in the last 2 years, because we don't want to do anything other than immunity. But for that, you have to survive. And for survival, you need a more wider basket of nutritional ingredients. Okay. And nutrition, immunity anyway is a very complex subject. Okay. It is directly linked to the amount of sleep that you have. So I think the immune ingredients will remain vanilla for a while, but then it is going to kind of get very rationalized. So in my opinion, ingredients like ginger, medicinal mushroom, postbiotic is something which is the space to be watched for. Yeah. Eye health, we have the standard eye health products. The Mintel data shows that most of the products which were kind of launched in eye health care contained AEC, zinc. But Marigold, which is where the benefits are completely mentioned, we as a country have a great degree of advantage on this particular ingredient, will be explored further and will remain an important ingredient for future to come in. And the last one is the mental well-being. I think stress, again coming to the immunity, because that is the hot topic of this season, stress does what to immunity is known to us. And therefore, I think those adjunct areas, the well-being mental, which is magnesium, for example, is a mindfulness mineral. And the traditional, what Dr. Vinita was mentioning, that the traditional ingredients which are there, the base, which is not the functional ingredients or the kind of very niche ingredients, but the minerals and that space is going to remain a very, very important segment where quality offerings, better bioavailability in delivery, all those segments will get, where you reduce the dosage that you give to the patient or the consumer, and the ingredients become more bioavailable and get delivered. So that is segment to be watched. Now coming to the last one is diagnostics. I believe that diabetes is a very good example from the pharma side to watch. the way that diagnostics can happen for diabetes at home and the last 20-30 years of journey on that diagnostics has completely changed the way diabetes as a segment is being currently looked at, in addition to others. The same thing will happen in nutrition, where a quicker test, comprehensive test, for example, vitamin D3. I know some large laboratories, which are chain laboratories. The way that B12 and vitamin D3 is diagnosed is the great profit driver for these laboratories. And you would think that it would be the regular test, and they are not. So on nutritional parameters, I think comprehensive diagnostics, at home kit for diagnostics will be a sector, and that will shape in turn the industry for us. So those are, in short, Dr. Anish, the trends that I see. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thanks, Prashant, for your view. In fact, I think I have received a cue from our organizers that we are running a bit short. So I would request the next three panelists to answer these questions in brief so that we are mindful of the time. So Mr. Sanjay Mariwala, I think this is one of my favorite questions, is how do we really make the stakeholders aware about the clinical benefits which are there with these nutritionals and nutraceuticals, and what are the strategies that we look at it? So request you to be brief on this if you can, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Anish. There are two elements I want to talk about. One is the domestic market, and the second is the international market. I think if you look at the domestic market, we really need to bring about, make the practitioners, the doctors, the nutritionists, the dietitians, the fitness experts, a part of our industry in some way, and bring them into understanding what is it that they want to hear from us that we are not able to present, or we need to present in a much better way. I think this becomes an important element of how do we engage with the stakeholders and the endorsers who can actually make a significant difference to validating with the patients or the people who need nutritional inputs, that fact that this is safe and it's good to consume and they help and benefit you. I think we need to create that engine of growth in India by bringing them together. I'm not going to elaborate on it, but there could be various things we can talk about what we can do. The second area is this may need to also affect the education system a little bit, that we need to bring about nutritional awareness in the medical education in some form at some stage in life. On the international part, if we have to make a dent in the international market, which we are making, I think slowly and steadily, we need to build on the relationships between the nations and the regulatory bodies, between Indian regulatory bodies and European regulatory bodies, Indian regulatory bodies and American regulatory bodies, or Asian regulatory bodies, so that we create pipelines of growth for both the products we have and the markets that we can serve. And I think this is going to require an industrial effort. It is going to require government and industry coming together and doing something significant to make an impact. And just like we created a few years ago in the software industry, we can create a momentum of growth for the nutraceutical industry if these forces come together and create a growth opportunity. Just like pharma opened up, I think Nutra can open up and become a 50, 100 to 150, $200 billion industry thing going forward for India.
Thanks, Mr. Sanjay. Very, very briefly explain, and thank you for being mindful of the time. Mr. Abhishek, I have a very different question to you. We have seen the COVID-19 has changed the paradigms, and we are looking at a new normal. So as per in the new normal, what do you think is the mindfulness of the millennials or the new generation which is there for a healthy lifestyle?
Yeah, so thanks, Dr. Desai, for this. So I think before we answer this, I think we need to understand what are the new age brands that are launching products in India. I think unlike the past, where there were a lot of pharma companies who were manufacturing nutraceutical products and they had the entire wherewithal to launch products and go to market. Now we have a lot of new brands who are pure nutraceutical companies. A lot of new companies that enter in the market, they have a very clear plan. They know what is the target segment that they want to launch the products on. They have an inkling of what product range they want, and they know what are the product USPs, which are meeting the market trends. And most of these new brands, they have sales, promotion, distribution as their core competencies. and they depend on a very strong partner who can support them with all the other related aspects for launch of a product. So all the new brands look for partners who can provide end-to-end solutions, starting with market intelligence, which I think Dr. Vinita just mentioned, that what is the consumer insight? What do the consumers want? And then conceptualizing products around this market gap, which will validate the business plans that they make. In addition to this, I think the new age brands need extensive support on research and development in order to develop any new ideas that they have in their mind. They need regulatory support to understand the ever-changing and dynamic FSSAI and various laws. They need a partner who can guide them on regulatory. They need ingredient sourcing to source all the potent ingredients. And I think the most important is someone who can manufacture quality, innovative products with giving them technology benefits. And inputs in the end, I think for packaging, they need inputs on branding, label claims, packaging options to maintain the overall aesthetic of the brand till the product is finally launched in the market. So I think by hand-holding the new age customers and understanding the diverse requirements of every brand, partners must ultimately deliver the most optimized solution to the end consumer and the millennials. I think having a ready-to-offer product is also very important with all the documentation, stability studies, and shelf life claims. These are really cherished by the new brands and the new consumers, as it enables them to select from a diverse range of segments and launch complete range of products in the market at lightning speed, which is like they can come to market very fast. So I think just to conclude, at Vantage Nutrition, we believe it's about time that we redefine the global nutritional market with advanced technology and innovative products.
Thanks, Mr. Abhishek. And Dr. Vinita, for the last but not the least, the question to you. You being the R&D head of a large Indian multinational, how do you see the R&D, or what is the focus in R&D that needs to be there to impact this space in the coming time, and what are the kind of focus that needs to be there of the industry to impact this space to get that exponential growth?
So largely, what happens is the first investment which I feel is to build capabilities, and capability in terms of the product development cycle. And in product development, as I think Mr. Nagari did touch upon, is about first the people. I mean, a limited industry, limited resources. So people itself with that high level of experience needs to come in. Second is capability building in terms of technologies. Your back end, analytical, the analytical capabilities of India. We move out. We try to reach out to analytical capability outside. And what we have in India is, the offshoots of some multinationals. So analytical capabilities in-house as well as external in terms of building the identification of these ingredients and the chemistry around these ingredients is important. And I think the third big part is about investment in supply chain. So investments, and when I say supply chain, it's not just delivery, it's about the whole vendor creation management. So creating high quality vendors who will be able to provide the industry, especially for R&D innovation, products of high quality at a cost which is feasible. I mean, these two are getting today unbalanced. What the availability is there versus what the cost is, and the end product cost is going to be is definitely very, very high. I mean, you can't even think of putting such type of products into the market. So largely capability at a product development end-to-end cycle. Second is about the analytical and the sensory capabilities, because ultimately you may get a great product, but for the consumer to be happy and delightful for consuming the product, the sensory is important. So how do these work? So the investment in chemistry and understanding the interactions between difference is going to be core. And last is as I said, the investment in creation of all the vendors at every aspect of product development, working back in with the supplier. It's going to be where industry has to invest at least for next few years. There are many more things that industry can invest, but unless you form a very strong foundation, you can't go ahead. If your foundation is weak, investing in high-end technology probably will be meaningless at this point. So hence, it's important to look at all these aspects together and then bring it, where the investment needs to come in.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your thoughts. And I think it's very important thing that has come up through these discussions, that we need to have all our efforts. We need to integrate all the stakeholders together. We need to have a consolidated approach. We need to have a 360-degree view, and we cannot have a piecemeal solution. So we need to have an end-to-end solution whereby we can look at the industry growing exponentially and being at the forefront. And one of the most important thing as medical professionals we would be looking for is how do we really have and achieve a healthy society and achieve superior patient outcomes when we are looking at health, disease, and wellness. So thank you, everybody, and thank you, ET, for this opportunity for us to discuss this important topic. With this, I thank all my panelists and end the session at this point of time. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for such an engaging discussion. Once again, we thank all our esteemed panelists. Dear delegates, we hope you're visiting the experience zone where you can visit our partner booths, learn more about our partners, watch videos, and interact with experts. And keep those comments flowing in with the hashtag ET Nutrition Summit. Well, dear delegates, it's now time to take our health into our own hands. You may look healthy for your age, but your muscles could say otherwise. You don't believe us? Well, we have a video to show you just that. This video is brought to you by our presenting partner, Abbott. So let's take a look.
I don't believe this.
I'm quite surprised.
That's embarrassing.
This can't be right.
We lose muscle mass as we grow older, and poor muscle health could lead to loss of strength and immunity, affecting your day-to-day activities and increasing your risk of infections. While you cannot reverse the aging process, you can slow down the loss of muscle mass and improve the health of your muscles with the right exercise and complete balanced nutrition.
Log into muscleagetest.in today and take the Muscle Age test.